6 months, 205 games, and now we're down to the last two.
Greg, the same two, New England and Houston.
That's right. Here on Extra Time, the MLS Cup runneth over now. The MLS Cup matchup is set. A little bit of deja vu, a rematch from last year. Houston and New England going at it at RFK Stadium this weekend. And Shep, we're going to look at it all the way through, from the back all the way up to the top, and a couple of the X factors and intangibles. But let's start with the back line, start with the defense for these two teams. Let's break it all down. In goal, two big names right off the bat, Pat Onstad and Matt Reis. Matt Reis, no goals so far in the playoffs. Pat Onstad, the best goals against average in the history of the league.
I'll definitely give that as an even. I mean, they're two big-time goalkeepers. Greg, they've been there before. They're excellent. The pressure is not going to affect them. So I don't think either team has an edge, unless maybe it goes to the dreaded penalty kicks. Then I'd give it to Matt Reis.
You would give it to Matt Reis. Well, last year, of course, Pat Onstad prevailed in the penalty kicks. So why going to Matt Reis in this one?
Just because Pat Onstad prevailed last year. I think the body of work over the history.
A little karma.
Yeah.
Swinging the other way.
It's a yin and a yang, but consistently, I think Matt Reis over the course of their careers has been exceptional at the penalty kick.
Now, in front of them, they have two of the best backlines in MLS. Michael Parkhurst for New England was just voted Defender of the Year last week. And, I mean, this guy's a great player. You have some good players around him. And, of course, Showery Joseph and Jeff Lorenowitz in the midfield for New England.
I'm definitely giving the edge in the back and the defensive midfield to Houston. Let me clarify. The back four of Houston, Weibel, Wade Barrett, Cochran, Eddie Robinson, I give them the edge over. Parkhurst had a good year. Jay Heaps is consistent. Avery John, I don't know. I'm giving that to Houston. Having said that, nobody competes with Lorenowitz and Showery Joseph. Those guys are monsters sweeping in front of the back three. So New England gets the edge there.
Well, it's a little bit different the way they play, of course, with the flat back four for Houston and then playing those three with the two right in front of them. Now, a couple of questions. Obviously, the Houston attack loves to get forward, loves to get in. Is that going to draw Showery Joseph out of the attack, maybe pull him back into the defense even, almost like a fourth defender? You know, it's going to maybe freeze him up a little bit.
I think that's one of the key individual matchups. We always talk about the team concept, but you look at individual battles, territory, where De Rosario and Showery Joseph end up on the field. Right. I think that's going to be a big factor.
And, of course, Taylor Twellman for New England will be going up against Eddie Robinson. Now, over the years, Robinson has had some good success against Twellman. Obviously, Twellman scored last year for New England, but Robinson's one of those defenders, gets under his skin, into his head. Now, that's going to be a great matchup, I think.
Great individual matchup. We had Dominic Kinnear on this show, Greg. I think what Houston does so well against New England is the back line plays up high. Dominic talked about it. He puts pressure on the ball, but that back four never loses sight of where Noonan and Twellman are, so it makes it difficult for New England if they get the turnover to capitalize.
Well, it sounds like Shep thinks that the defense has to go to Houston. For me, I think actually that Michael Parkhurst, this is his game. I think he's really going to shine on this one. We caught up with Houston's Eddie Robinson. Let's hear what he has to say about facing New England and Taylor Twellman.
You can't really stop those guys. They're good players. They're going to create their chances. I mean, there's no way that you can totally shut them out. Our goal is to just kind of do to them like we did to Kansas City, just make their chances as difficult as possible. Those guys, you know, Noonan and Twellman, they have a chemistry and a trust between each other that you don't see between other forwards in the league. And no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you concentrate, no matter how well you play on that given day, they're still going to create chances, and we just have to make those chances difficult.
So obviously New England and Houston are both loaded on the defensive side. Houston setting a record for goals against, and New England not letting in any goals so far in the playoffs. Going forward, though, means you have your work cut out for you if you're going to try and get through those things. So Houston, obviously, Shep, great attack. You have Dwayne De Rosario. You have great players on the flanks in Brad Davis and Brian Mullen. Jakwa up top and Nguenya up top. The big question is, Brian Ching doesn't look like he's really going to be healthy for this one.
Greg, we talk about any team, when they attack, you usually need 5 players engaged in the attack, and you need chemistry. So talking about the injury, I think that's a factor. If Brian Ching is unable to play, certainly Jakwa has done the job in Nguenya, but a little different chemistry for those wide midfielders trying to find the targets up front.
Certainly. You have Jakwa up there as the big man. You know, Brad Davis swinging balls in and Mullen swinging balls in and Dwayne De Rosario, they're going to be looking for him on those head balls, but you now have one less weapon in the air, especially without Ching. I mean, so good at controlling the ball and laying it off to Mullen and Dwayne De Rosario and players like that. So I think he's going to be deeply missed. Now, what do they do to fix that, though?
Yeah, I think you're right, because that's where Jaquia is great in the air, but Ching a better hold-up player back to the goal.
Right.
I think De Rosario is the X factor because he knows how to adjust. I think with Ching out of the lineup, I think Jaquia looks for those long balls in the air. De Rosario takes people on, tries to skin them on the dribble, go to goal himself.
Which is also what Joseph Ngwenya can do if he comes in. He's a guy who's got lots of speed, which is exactly what has hurt the Revolution all year long. If Ngwenya gets in behind, finds some space, De Rosario maybe plays a ball into him, that's going to be problems for the Revolution. But the Revolution, of course, they still have Taylor Twellman. I mean, this is probably the best goal scorer this league has ever seen.
Listen, I'm really vacillating in this game. I love both teams. I'll tell you where I don't like New England in the attack, and I know you have a different point of view. I love Taylor Twellman. I mean, the guy is a class player in Major League Soccer. Noonan, I love. I don't like the move that you love, which is Ralston from his wide right midfield position playing as a central playmaker. I loved it when New England had width of Ralston outside. He had the ability to cut inside. Andy Dorman played centrally. I thought they were more dangerous.
Well, you know, early in the season, I think they were more dangerous. However, as the season wore on, Andy Dorman just, his level just dropped and dropped. And eventually, Steve Nicol had to make a move, had to get him out of there. They had to do something to control the midfield. So they brought Ralston in. And my feeling is that with Ralston in there, if he stays in the middle, and that's the key, because when he starts floating wide, because he has become almost a natural right winger, when he starts floating out, they lose so much shape and space in the middle.
But I think he floats out wide because Wells Thompson and Connell Smith have not proven that they are consistent performers out wide. They're inconsistent. And I think that's where Ralston says, hey, I better go out wide and get some service in.
Well, that's a good point. Now, the other player up top for New England I think is dangerous also is Pat Noonan. For me, you know, Taylor Twellman can be neutralized by Eddie Robinson and Ryan Cochran back there. So for me, I think for the Revolution, it comes down to Pat Noonan. Pat Noonan has to give them a good 70 minutes holding the ball up, the old Pat Noonan that we've seen.
I think you can do that. Here's one other little X factor when we talk about attack. I love it when we talk about New England because there are only two teams in the world that on a corner kick play zone instead of man-to-man. That's Stevie Nicol, so it's Liverpool and New England. So can Jaquia find that little seam in a zone defense on the corner kick?
Well, that's a good point. And set pieces are obviously always important in finals. And you know, here's two different teams that go about them differently. New England really doesn't have anyone that can launch a shot on a set piece for some free kick around the area, as opposed to Houston, which has all those weapons in Davis and De Rosario.
And that's why, Greg, at the end of the day, I think this is a classic battle. Stevie Nicol, and you and I were talking about it, he's going to come out there, MLS Cup, he's going to kind of manage the game. Don't make a mistake.
Play Italian. Here's a Scottish guy, grew up and played in England.
I know. Hey,
it's an Italian team.
If they get a penalty kick, I don't know if he'll let anybody cross midfield to take it. But I agree with you. Houston's going to come out flying. I think it's going to be a great game. We talked about the attacking possibilities for Houston. That's why I'm giving them the edge.
Well, that's certainly going to be fun in the attack, especially if Houston comes out and they start flying very early on. New England sitting back. Little clash of philosophies in this one. This is kind of a battle of wits between two very intelligent coaches who are very well respected around the league for the teams that they've built from the core. How does it play out, though, over one 90-minute session?
Greg, definitely two of the better coaches in the history of Major League Soccer. Two very different styles in terms of tactically how they coach their team, but the players for both teams love their coaches. I think it's even. It's a push.
It might be a push. You know, Dominic, a very different type of coach than Steve Nicol in terms of also dealing with the media and the press. Dominic Kinnear loves to, he'll just tell you right out, this is my starting lineup, this is what I think, whereas Steve Nicol, a little closer to the vest.
A little closer to the vest. He won't even give the referee the starting lineup until 2 minutes before, but that's typical European, ex-Liverpool. It's the mind game.
Well, you know, speaking of the starting lineup, what happens later on in the game if somebody gets hurt or things? Let's look at the benches now. You know, Houston, Stuart Holden, definitely a game breaker who can come in. Does New England have anything like that?
I don't think they have a game breaker, and I think that's the difference. Generally, when you have to go to the bench, you're losing, and you need a game changer. Holden has the ability to whip a ball in, carve out an opportunity behind the defense. Andy Dorman, he could get in the game, but not that same type of dynamic burst, I think, to get your goal. So I'd give the edge to Houston.
Yeah, and New England's other big sub would be Adam Chrisman, the rookie, who's had a pretty decent season, but he's just a banger in there right now. He's still trying to figure out if he can maybe create a situation. I just don't think he can. So the coaches have lots of questions on the benches. Seems to me they're going to stay with the starting lineup for as long as they can. Now, speaking of coaches, we're going to have to go out west now, shift away from MLS Cup and go to Los Angeles, where there's a new coach that has just as many questions to answer as the MLS Cup coaches do.
The circus in LA never stops. You got to be kidding me. I mean,
there's a new ringmaster in Los Angeles.
I'm sick.
Ruud Gullit has been hired by the Los Angeles Galaxy as their new coach to take over for Frank Yallop, who's gone up to San Jose Earthquakes again. And you obviously don't agree with this move.
Nothing against Ruud Gullit, and I'm actually rooting for LA and Beckham to do well. But historically, there's no reason to go for a move like this. Historically, the name coaches, and Ruud Gullit's really been out of the coaching game for 3 years, no expertise with American players or Major League Soccer. The biggest factor, his management company, the same one as Posh and David Beckham. Surprise, you think David wanted Ruud Gullit? I guess that's why they went for him.
Well, we do know, over the years, obviously, agents have always played this sort of role where they're hooking up coaches and players and teams. Now, I'm not so sold on this he doesn't know the American player thing as being a negative. I think that the league is changing where it's maybe not as important to know the American player. If you surround a foreign coach who brings in the respect and the admiration, and obviously in the LA situation, the press hit that they get for this, the PR hit, maybe there is something that now a foreign coach can come here and have success.
Look, I agree with you, Greg, and I opened up by kind of chastising them, but I kind of like the move. I mean, it is LA.
It's sexy football.
It's sexy. I love the move, getting off the plane basically and saying, Kobe Jones, you're done playing, you're my assistant.
Right.
That's a smart move. So, look, LA has to be high risk, high reward. They've done it with this coach.
Yeah, they sure have. And if Ruud Gullit can bring a player or two over from wherever he wants, right, you never know what that could do for Los Angeles as well. Now, also staying out west, some big news this week, an announcement that there's a new team coming to MLS in 2009. Seattle is going to be the new expansion club in 2009 and make it the 15th team in MLS. Big, heavy hitters in the ownership group of this. You have Joe Roth, the Hollywood producer. You have Paul Allen, owner of the Seahawks and former co-founder of Microsoft, and Drew Carey, of course.
I love all of those guys, but I love Seattle as a fertile marketplace for soccer. It really always has been. And we keep hearing all the expansion rumor in cities. There are many great markets for a franchise. I don't think none better than Seattle. So I think, the right ownership group, a tremendous market. Let's see what they put on the field.
Yeah, well, that's the case. They're going to start out in Quest Field, which is where the Seahawks play. And so for me, I'm a little disappointed, though, that there is no stadium in place, because I think that that's been very important in the growth of MLS, and I think it's something they need to work on.
Well, I have two thoughts. First of all, I'm not as big into the soccer mantra, specific stadiums. Play a great game, have great players, you're going to fill the house. Secondly, the owners you alluded to, they can write a check like that if they want a stadium.
Yeah, we want a stadium in 3 weeks, and Paul Allen can probably get that done. Now, is Seattle it, though? Because now you have 15 teams. A little uneven, a little imbalanced. Where else do they go?
I think because of the imbalance now in terms of West Coast, East Coast, I would think you need another East Coast team. Philly's still in the running. Atlanta, I keep hearing Miami. So
St. Louis also.
St. Louis as well.
Heard that?
Is St. Louis in the East? It's in the middle.
Further east than Kansas City.
So I think one out of those four is going to be next.
Well, that'd be great. You get up to 16 teams, and this league is really going to be flying. So as the things go forward, things are looking great. But this week, we're in the here and now. It's all about the MLS Cup final on Sunday. Houston and New England. Shep, we got to ask, who are you picking?
Tough game, Houston.
I got to say, my heart might be with New England in this one, but my head is really going to go with Houston as well. So that's all we have. Get down to RFK if you can make it, and join us again next week for another edition of Extra Time. I'll be here, and Shep will be here, and we'll pick it around.